Hello guys, I'll be coding the UI of this design as seen on my sketch here. The design was inspired from the Mozilla Chrome extension, so I redesigned it on the sketch here, and we'll go ahead to code a simple UI of it. This is where it was inspired from Mozilla's Chrome extension. Muzil is a creation of best design inspiration by Envision, and they've got a very nice Chrome extension. I'll be using CSS Grid system among other things to achieve the same effect from the Mozilla inspired design. It's just going to be a basic project, so we won't need any add-ons. So let's get started with our VS Code. I have my file set up already, just the basic HTML file and CSS file, and I also have a folder with my images in them. In my VS Code, I'll be using the HTML boilerplate. And then I would add my link to my CSS style sheets. Also, I would need a particular Google font, and that would be our Open Sans. Copy the import URL and paste in my style sheets. Like I stated earlier, I'll be using the CSS Grid, and we'll use the opportunity to teach how to take advantage of this, especially when you want to actually come up with great designs like I have in my sketch. So let's have a parent container with the style container. And inside our parent container, let's have the h2 let's have the h2 introduction text. I'll put my design by the side here, so we can actually take a peek from it while we're writing the UI code. Okay. And the text in the intro text says from our pic. Now we'll need a grid container that will accommodate 5 grid items, like we can see right here. 5 of them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 grid items. We need a grid container that will accommodate these 5 grid items, and we would like to give this grid container a class of grid wrapper. Let's provide 5 grid items with the class of wrapper. Then we would need a parent div wrapper to hold the text that we have in each of these grid items. We have, say, a H3 and a paragraph tag. So we need a parent element, a parent wrapper to hold our H3 and paragraph text. We will replicate this in all of our grid items. And now let's see how this looks on our HTML. This is what it looks like right now. It looks ugly now because we don't have our CSS in it, but at least we have HTML skeleton ready to have our CSS. In our CSS style sheets, we already imported our font. So let's add a box sizing property on all our elements. And also let's set our margin and padding to 0. On the body of our document, let's add a background color from our design. Our background color is F8, F8, F8. We need to add a text color. We'll give that a black. And our font family, which we just imported. Remember, it's Open Sans. Yeah, let me get the right one. Yeah, exactly. Okay. the next step right now is to get to let the grid, let's give our grid items container. Let's identify our grid items container, and our grid items container will be grid wrapper. That's the parent element that holds all of our grid items. And we're going to make it a display grid. I just saved that, and if you notice, we didn't actually see any changes. So for us to start to see changes, we would have to divide the grid template columns into 4 fractions. Ideally, for us to divide into 4 fractions, we could actually divide them by percentage or by pixels. So for instance, grid templates columns 25% by 25% by 25% by 25%, and then I can see that our grid items are equally divided into 4 places, and each of these grid items have a width of 25%. We could also divide by pixels. So say we have like 100 pixels, 100 pixels, 100 pixels, and 100 pixels. They are still divided into 4. But then if you realize, if you see this, it looks a little bit ugly. And if we go ahead to actually divide our template columns by percentage or percentage, we would actually be setting ourselves up. So if you want to actually sleep well at night, knowing that your design will scale on any screen properly, it's best to actually go through the route of using fractions. So for fractions, I would introduce 4 column fractions. First one will be 1 FR, second third, and fourth. And then we have them divided up nicely in fractions. Another way to do this, now to make it a little bit more neat and cleaner, is to have the repeats. We're dividing our fractions 4 times, and each would have 1 fraction. And afterwards, we're going to give our grid wrapper a grid auto row of min max, so 60 pixels auto. So by default, the grid items are auto sized to accommodate their content. That is, whatever content we have in any of these grid items, it would the grid auto rows would automatically accommodate them. But in this case, we wish to actually have a grid grid row with the height of 260 pixels. The min max here is actually putting the minimum height size to 260 pixels, and the maximum at auto, and this would help us in cases whereby we would want to expand. It's gonna whenever we want to actually expand our content, it's gonna fit right in our grid items. And now let's actually give the grid items some margin space by using grid gap of say 5 pixels. Yeah, and the next step right here is to actually pick each of our grid items with the common class wrapper. I wasn't sure about that class name, but I think it actually works in this case. So let's target a grid list with the class wrapper and set the background of say we could actually set the background of let's try green, just set some color. Yes, you can actually see what we're trying to achieve here. But now we won't be using, remember, we won't be from our design. We actually have images as our background, so we'll be replacing that with an image. We'll be replacing that with an image of, yes, one of our image here. Yeah, and then have a background size cover. How we doing here? Yes. As we can see, it's actually coming into place, at least looking like our design, but not totally yet. And then going forward, we would, because from our design we have different images for each grid list items, so let's add classes, different classes to each of our grid items. The first one, let's give it a BG1. Second list item, grid items, a BG2. Third one, a BG3. Fourth one, a BG4. Fifth one, a BG5. This will help us identify each grid item list and would help us give each a background image. So let's start 1, BG1. BG1 with the image 1, BG2 with the image 2, BG3 with the image 3, BG4 with the image 4, and BG5 with image 5, and yeah, coming up nicely. We'll get there soon. Yes, now we want to make the first div right here. We want to actually make the first div out of the grid items, and we want to make it look like our design right here, because in our design we can see that it extends out from its original size, takes over the column and the rows. So what we do is we'll target the first div by using the pseudo ends of type. Wrapper ends of type. The type will be the first div. And would introduce the grid column. Grid column will span from the first column to the third column. So you hold on right here. I haven't saved yet. So what I'm trying to actually do is we want to be able to take over the column from the first one here to the third column. This is how this works. This is actually counted in, let me try and inspect this. Yes, so you can actually see from the highlighted, how it's been highlighted. You have the first column from, it starts counting from the last edge from my left. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and for the row, it starts from the top. Yeah, from the last edge from the top, and right here we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 grid row. So it starts from top here, 1, 2, 3. So what we want to do right here, as our design has shown us, we want to be able to actually make our first div image, our first grid item, span from here, from the first edge to the third column, and also from the first row to the third row. So it's going to span from here to this place right here. And when I save, yes, I should be, yes, now we have that. And likewise, our grid row should be able to span from the first row to the top downwards. Yes, just like we have it on our design. Just like we have it on our design. For us to, let's have the padding on our body element. A padding of say 30 pixels. Yes, it looks a lot more better right here. Yes. Now that our design is coming up quite nicely, let's target our text in the grid. Let's make our text look like they look in from our design. For For our text, we have them wrapped up in divs, and then let's actually have the padding. Let's give it a padding of say 20 pixels. Yeah, and give it a height of 100 pixels. Yeah, and let's actually try to align our text, make our text come to the bottom of each of the grid items like we've seen, like we have them in our design. For this, I'm going to actually make use of this flex box. Yeah, and you can see how it looks distorted right here. But now I will change the flex direction from rows to column. And have the justify content flex, and now we're good. We have our text at the bottom of our grid items. And afterwards, let's change the text color. The text, let's style our text. Yeah, we're forgetting our H. We're forgetting our H2 from the top here. So let's our H2. Yeah, we have 14 pixels. The font weight of 600. It's actually from our design. It's actually an uppercase. So say text transform uppercase, and then give it a margin bottom of 30 pixels to push, to give it some breathing space from our grid items. And for the text in our grid items, we have H3 and a P tag. Color of our H3 should be white. The font size is 16. Pixels, and the font weight of 700. And for P tag, we have color white. Oh yeah, should be white. Or H3 should be white too. Yeah, the font size is 14 pixels. Font weight, it's a regular, so I'd say it's a regular, so that would be 400, and a margin top of 10 pixels. Yes, so we're almost there right here, and one of the very few things we need to do is to actually make our text readable on the background image. Right now it's not readable because we have a white text on bright images. So we would actually introduce an opacity layout on our image and behind our text. Yes, so for us to do that, we would, on our wrapper tag, because the opacity text will be using the pseudocode um, before the before pseudocode. Yeah. So on the main wrapper tag, let's have a position or relative. Yeah, we have a position relative, and then a pseudocode before that would actually bear our layout, our opacity layout. So we have an empty content. We have a position absolute. That was the reason why we actually add a position relative on our main wrapper, because the child pseudocode will be position absolute and we want it to actually sit well. We'll make it the display block. Give it a background black. Make the opacity of this background 0.3 and give it a basic weight of 100%, height of 100%. Yes, so we have that right here, but if you notice, you can see that this opacity overlay is actually sitting on our text, and it shouldn't be the case. We need it to sit behind the text. So what do? We would actually introduce Z index here. We give our wrapper a Z index, Z index 2, and we'll give our overlay a Z index of -1. Yes, and now we can see that our text is sitting comfortably on our overlay. One more thing that we would like to do to actually help us have some lovely interaction is for us to be able to, because I assume these are supposed to be clickable, but we won't make them clickable, but we should be able to have some interactions, to make them look clickable, to have that kind of interactive feeling when a user hovers on this grid item. So to do that, we would have a wrapper over, we'll have transform scale 0.98, and on our main wrapper we'll have a transition, or we want to actually make all the elements on this wrapper want to ease them in when we hover. We save that. And also we want to be able to make this wrapper. We want to actually have each of them, make it want to actually have each of this wrapper have a cursor, a pointer cursor. Yeah, exactly. This is what we want. Yes, so right now the beauty about CSS Grid is it scales beautifully. You can actually do a whole lot of grid manipulations with your CSS Grid. CSS Flexbox could actually do the same, but CSS Flexbox isn't really designed for this kind of interactions. And then even at a much more responsive view, it still kind of tries to scale. I won't be working on that right now, but I'm sure if you pick this up from where I stopped, you could actually make it much more responsive from mobile view. I'll be putting this link, I'll be putting this up in the link and have it in my video, so you could just pick it up from there and actually play with it. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope it was fun while we were at it. Thanks.